My stepfather sold my daughter's wheelchair for drug money, so I got full custody, built a $100 million nonprofit, and now he watches from jail as I accept awards on TV. Before we move forward, please show some love by subscribing and share your location in the comments. I love seeing where our family is watching from. I was in the middle of a board meeting when my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. 3 missed calls from my ex-husband Jason, 2 from his mother and 1 from a number I didn't recognize. My stomach dropped. Something was wrong with Zaria. My 8-year-old daughter had cerebral palsy and used a custom wheelchair that cost $12,000. Money I'd fought insurance companies for months to get. She was supposed to be at Jason's place for his weekend custody. I excused myself and called back. "Clara, please don't freak out," Jason said, his voice shaking. "Where's Zaria?" "She's fine, she's here with me, but..." He paused. "Your stepfather came by. He took her wheelchair." I couldn't stop him because I was in the shower and he just took it. The room spun. "What do you mean he took it?" "He sold it, Clara. He sold our daughter's wheelchair. I found out from a pawn shop owner who called me. Austin got $300 for it. $300 goddamn dollars." I couldn't breathe. My mother's husband of 5 years. The man who'd promised to be a stabilizing force in our chaotic family. The man who'd held Zaria at her birth and called her his grandbaby. Where is she now? I'm carrying her. She's been asking for her chair all day. That image. My baby girl being carried around like a toddler instead of having the independence her wheelchair gave her, shattered something inside me. I grabbed my keys and ran. I found Austin at my mother's house, sprawled on the couch watching television like it was any other Saturday. The smell hit me first, that acrid chemical stench that meant he'd been smoking crack again. My mother, Diane, sat at the kitchen table, her face hollow, pretending not to notice. "Where's the wheelchair?" I said, my voice deadly calm. Austin didn't even look at me. "Gone. Needed the money." "You needed..." I stepped closer, fists clenched. "That wheelchair cost $12,000. It's custom fitted to my daughter's body. Do you understand what you've done?" He finally turned, eyes glassy and indifferent. "Insurance'll get her another one. Always making everything so dramatic, Clara. It takes 6 months to get approved. 6 months for them to build a new one. What is she supposed to do until then?" My mother finally spoke, her voice thin. "Maybe you could buy one of those regular wheelchairs from the drugstore. Just temporarily." I stared at her, this woman who'd birthed me, nursed me, raised me. "Those don't work for CP, Mama. You know that. They don't have the support she needs." "Her spine could..." I stopped, turned back to Austin. "Which pawn shop?" "Don't remember," he said, lighting a cigarette. I pulled out my phone and called the police right there. Austin laughed. "Go ahead. They won't do nothing. It was in my house. It was at Jason's house. You committed theft." His smile faded slightly. My mother stood up. "Clara, don't do this. He's family." He stopped being family when he stole from a disabled child. Officer Michaela Mercado took my statement in Jason's living room while Zaria slept on the couch, exhausted from a day of being carried. Jason sat beside me, his hand on my shoulder. The first time we'd been united in years. "This is technically grandparent theft," Officer Mercado explained, writing notes. "It's complicated because there are familial relations involved." "He's not her grandfather," I said. "He's my mother's husband. He has no legal relationship to my daughter." "But he had access to the home?" Jason shook his head. "I never gave him a key. He must have come through the back door. I didn't lock it because Zaria sometimes needs to get outside quick if she's feeling overwhelmed. The wheelchair fits through that door." Officer Mercado's expression softened. "That's premeditation. He knew the chair would be accessible. She closed her notebook. I'm filing this as theft and exploitation of a disabled person. That's a felony. But I have to warn you, pressing charges against family gets messy. He made it messy when he sold my daughter's mobility for drug money, I said. After she left, Jason turned to me. There's something else you should know. This isn't the first time. My blood went cold. What? Last month, when Zaria stayed over, her communication tablet went missing. I thought she'd misplaced it, but now? The tablet. Her voice. Zaria was nonverbal and used that tablet to communicate. We'd found it a week later at a different pawn shop. I'd assumed it was random theft. It was Austin, Jason said quietly. It's always been Austin. 3 days later, Zaria screamed in pain during physical therapy. Without her proper wheelchair, she'd been sitting incorrectly, and her hip had partially dislocated. The ER doctor, Dr. Patricia Cantrell, looked at her x-rays and then at me with barely concealed anger. How long has she been without her adaptive wheelchair? 3 days. It was stolen. Dr. Cantrell's jaw tightened. Stolen. By whom? When I explained, she set down her tablet. Mrs. Morrison, I need to be clear with you. Your daughter has spastic diplegia. Her wheelchair isn't a convenience. It's medical equipment that prevents exactly this kind of injury. Without it, we're looking at potential surgery, months of recovery, and possible permanent damage. Zaria lay on the hospital bed, tears streaming down her face, using her tablet to type. Hurts, mommy. Hurts so much. I know, baby. I know. I looked at Dr. Cantrell. What do I do? First, we sedate her and manipulate the hip back into place. Then, I'm reporting this to Child Protective Services. My heart stopped. What? I didn't do anything wrong. I know. But your daughter was injured because someone in her family circle stole medical equipment. CPS needs to document this. It protects you legally and ensures the perpetrator faces consequences. She paused. It also means if this person has unsupervised access to your child again, you could face neglect charges. The implications crashed over me. My mother. I'd have to cut off my mother if I wanted to protect my daughter. My mother showed up at the hospital with Austin. Security stopped them at the pediatric ward entrance, but Mama called me hysterical. How could you keep me from seeing my grandbaby? You brought Austin, I said flatly, watching through the window as nurses cared for Zaria. He wanted to apologize. I don't want his apology. I want the wheelchair back, and it's too late for that. Claire, baby, he's sick. Addiction is a disease. You of all people should understand. Don't. My voice cracked. Don't you dare make this about understanding. I watched you fight addiction for 10 years. I held your hair while you threw up. I lied to CPS to keep them from taking me away. I've given understanding my entire life, Mama. But I won't sacrifice my daughter for it. There was a long silence. When she spoke again, her voice was cold. So you're choosing to cut me off? Your own mother. You're choosing him over your granddaughter. I'm choosing my child. There's a difference. If you do this, we're done. You hear me? Done. The line went dead. Jason found me in the hallway sobbing. She said we're done. He held me while I broke apart. Then she was never really there to begin with. That night, I filed for a restraining order against Austin. The judge granted it immediately, citing the theft and Zaria's injury. But the order didn't include my mother. Technically, she'd done nothing wrong. She'd just chosen the wrong side. Going through my mother's house to remove my daughter's remaining possessions, I found Austin's office. Really just a converted closet. What I discovered there made me physically ill. Pawn tickets. Dozens of them dating back 2 years. My grandmother's wedding ring. My father's military medals. An antique doll collection worth thousands. Even my old laptop that I'd thought was broken. But the worst? Medical bills. Zarya's medical bills, the ones my mother had offered to help file with insurance. She'd been sending them to Austin and he'd been selling the documentation to identity thieves. I called my lawyer Veronica Wright immediately. He's been committing medical identity fraud. There are bills here for treatments Zarya never received. Bring everything to my office, Veronica said. This just became federal. At her downtown office, Veronica spread the documents across her desk. Claire, this is bigger than theft. He's been running a scheme using your daughter's disability status to claim false medical expenses, then selling her actual medical equipment to fund his habit. Can we use this for the custody case? I was fighting Jason for full custody, not because he was a bad father, but because his building didn't have handicap access, and after Zarya's injury, I needed complete control over her care environment. Absolutely. No judge will grant him visitation now. She paused. But there's something else. With this level of fraud, the state will prosecute. Are you prepared for that? What does that mean? Your mother could face charges too. She lives with him, had access to these documents, potentially benefited from the money. I thought about my mother, about childhood memories and broken promises. Do it. Build the case. The courtroom was packed. Local news had caught wind of the wheelchair theft case, and suddenly we were everywhere. Austin sat at the defense table in an ill-fitting suit, looking smaller than I remembered. My mother sat in the gallery, refusing to look at me. The prosecutor, Assistant DA Kevin Torres, methodically built his case. The pawn shop owner testified about the wheelchair. The identity theft victims testified about fraudulent medical claims. Dr. Cantrell testified about Zarya's injury. Then it was my turn. Ms. Morrison, Torres said gently. Can you describe your daughter's daily needs? I explained Zarya's routine. The transfers, the positioning, the careful attention to pressure points. Her wheelchair isn't just transportation. It's her freedom. Without it, she's dependent on others for everything. She can't go to the bathroom alone. Can't reach her toys. Can't sit with friends at lunch. And when it was stolen, how did that affect her? She cried herself to sleep for 3 nights. She kept asking, why would Papa Austin hurt me? I didn't have an answer. Austin's lawyer, a public defender who looked exhausted, tried to paint him as a man struggling with addiction. But Torres destroyed that narrative during Austin's testimony. Mr. Williams, you've been to rehab 5 times in 3 years, correct? Yes. Each time funded by Ms. Morrison's mother? Yes. And yet you continued to steal from your family. Why? Austin shrugged. The drugs, man. They make you do things. Did the drugs make you research which medical equipment had the highest resale value? Did the drugs make you wait until Mr. Morrison was in the shower to commit theft? Silence. Mr. Williams, you're not a victim of addiction. You're a predator using addiction as an excuse. 3 weeks later, the jury returned. Guilty on all counts. Theft, exploitation of a disabled person, identity fraud, and medical fraud. Austin showed no emotion. My mother collapsed, sobbing. The judge, Honor Constance Washington, was a black woman in her 60s with steel in her eyes. Mr. Williams, in my 30 years on the bench, I have seen many addiction cases. I have compassion for the disease. But you didn't steal bread to feed yourself. You stole a disabled child's mobility to feed your addiction. That is unforgivable. She sentenced him to 8 years in state prison with mandatory rehabilitation. He'd serve at least 6. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Ms. Morrison, how do you feel? I looked directly at the camera. I feel like justice was served. But I also feel sad. Sad that it came to this. Sad that my daughter had to be hurt for people to take this seriously. What message do you have for other families dealing with addiction? Set boundaries. Love doesn't mean accepting abuse. It took me too long to learn that. That clip went viral. By the next morning, my inbox was flooded with messages from other parents of disabled children, sharing their own stories of theft, exploitation, and family betrayal. I read every single one and something crystallized in my mind. This wasn't just about Austin. This was systemic. 6 months after Austin's sentencing, I sat in a coffee shop with 3 strangers who'd become allies. Keisha, whose son's prosthetic leg had been stolen by her boyfriend. Raymond, whose daughter's insulin pump was pawned by his sister. And Patricia, Dr. Cantrell, who'd left her hospital position to join us. We need to call it something powerful, Keisha said. Something that reflects what they take from our kids, Raymond added. I thought about Zaria, now thriving with her new wheelchair and full custody settled in my favor. Stolen independence. That's what they take. Our children's independence. And so Stolen Independence Foundation was born. We started small. A hotline for families to report medical equipment theft, a fund to replace stolen equipment, and legal advocacy. I worked my corporate finance job during the day and built the nonprofit at night. Jason surprised me by becoming our first major donor. She's my daughter too, he said, handing me a check for $50,000. This matters. The media attention from Austin's trial helped. Ellen invited us on her show. Good Morning America did a segment. Suddenly we had funding, volunteers, and most importantly we had reach. Within a year we'd helped 300 families. Within 2 we'd opened offices in 12 states. I quit my corporate job and became executive director full-time. My mother never reached out. Not once. But every time I thought about calling her, I remembered Zaria's question, why would Papa Austin hurt me? And I knew I'd made the right choice. 3 years after Austin's conviction, I testified before Congress. The room was intimidating. Senators, cameras, reporters. But I thought about all the families counting on us. Medical equipment theft is a federal crime when it targets disabled individuals. But enforcement is inconsistent, I told the Senate Committee on Health. We need stronger protections, mandatory reporting, and a national registry for stolen adaptive equipment. Senator Maria Gonzalez leaned forward. Ms. Morrison, what would this bill mean for families like yours? It would mean that when someone steals a wheelchair, it's treated as seriously as stealing a car. It would mean pawn shops have to verify ownership before accepting medical equipment. It would mean that disabled children's independence is protected by law, not just by exhausted parents. The hearing lasted 4 hours. By the end we had bipartisan support. The Stolen Independence Act was introduced 6 weeks later. While lobbying for the bill, I met with dozens of families. Each story was heartbreaking. A father who stole his daughter's hearing aids. A grandmother who pawned her grandson's ventilator equipment. An uncle who sold his niece's custom braces. The common thread. Addiction or financial desperation turning family members into thieves, and disabled children paying the price. In a CNN interview, the anchor asked, "Do you ever regret pressing charges against your stepfather?" "Never," I said. "I regret not acting sooner. I regret making excuses for him. But prosecuting him? That saved my daughter and potentially hundreds of other children." "Your mother still hasn't reconciled with you?" "No. And that's her choice to make." The truth was more complicated. I missed her. Desperately. But I'd learned that love without boundaries is just enabling. The Stolen Independence Act passed on a Thursday. President signs it into law 3 weeks later, and I was there in the Rose Garden, holding Zaria's hand while cameras flashed. "This is for you, baby," I whispered. She typed on her tablet, "For all the kids like me." That year our nonprofit received the Presidential Citizens Medal. I accepted it wearing my father's military medals, the ones I'd recovered from the pawn shop after Austin's arrest. Then came the MacArthur Fellowship, the CNN Hero Award, the NAACP Image Award for Activism. Each one felt surreal. But the most meaningful recognition came from a small organization in Houston. They named their youth leadership program after Zaria. At the ceremony, I watched my daughter, now 11, confident, brilliant, speak to a room full of disabled children. "My grandpa stole my wheelchair," she said through her communication device. "He hurt me. But my mom showed me that we don't let people hurt us, even when they're family. We protect ourselves and each other." Standing ovation. I couldn't stop crying. Backstage, a reporter asked, "Your stepfather is up for parole next year. Will you oppose it?" "Absolutely. He served 3 years. He got 8 for a reason." "And your mother?" I'd heard she was finally divorcing Austin, that she'd gotten clean. But she still hadn't reached out. "I hope she finds peace. But that doesn't mean she gets access to my daughter." That night my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Clara? It's Mama." My heart stopped. "How did you get this number?" "I saw you on TV. Saw everything you built." Her voice cracked. "I'm so proud of you, baby." 3 years, Mama. 3 years of silence. "I know. I was ashamed. I chose him over you, over Zaria. I can't," she sobbed. "I can't take that back." I agreed to meet my mother at a neutral location, a park where Zaria used to play before the wheelchair theft. Mama looked older, smaller, worn down by years of addiction and poor choices. "You look good," she said, sitting on a bench. "I am good. We're good." I stayed standing, keeping distance between us. I left him. Finally. The day he went to prison I should have left. But I stayed in that house, surrounded by all the evidence of what he'd done. She wiped her eyes. "I found letters you wrote me as a child. I found Zaria's baby pictures. I found the life I threw away. I needed you, Mama. When Zaria was hurt, when I was fighting for custody, building the nonprofit, I needed my mother and you chose him." "I know." She looked at me, really looked at me. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I'm getting help. Real help. Been clean for 16 months. Good. That's good. Can I?" Her voice broke. "Can I see her? Just once?" Every instinct screamed no. But I thought about the values I'd tried to instill in Zaria. Boundaries, yes. But also grace when it's earned. "Not yet. You need to prove consistency. A year of sobriety isn't enough. Call me in another year. Show me you've stayed clean. Show me you've done the work to understand why you made the choices you made." She nodded, tears streaming. "I'll do it. I'll prove it. And Mama, if you ever choose anyone over my daughter again, we're done. Forever. Do you understand?" Yes. We didn't hug. I wasn't ready for that. But I gave her my new phone number before I left. Austin's parole hearing happened on a Tuesday. I took the day off, dressed in my best suit, and brought a folder of victim impact statements from the families we'd helped through stolen independence. He looked different, older, sober, humbled. His lawyer argued he'd completed rehab, earned his GED, and expressed genuine remorse. When it was my turn to speak, I addressed Austin directly for the first time in 4 years. "You stole my daughter's wheelchair for $300. That single act set off a chain of events that exposed your fraud, hurt my family, and separated me from my mother. But it also revealed something important. Disabled children are vulnerable in ways most people don't understand. Their equipment isn't replaceable. Their independence is fragile. And the people who steal from them aren't just thieves, they're predators. I held up the folder. These are stories from 300 families we've helped. Each one is your legacy. Each child who went without their equipment, each parent who felt helpless. That's because of you. Austin's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't need your apology. I need you to understand that you can't hurt people and expect forgiveness just because you're clean now. Actions have consequences. You taught me that. The parole board denied his release. He'd served the full 8 years. Outside, reporters waited. Ms. Morrison, your nonprofit just received a $100 million grant from the Gates Foundation. How does that feel? I smiled, thinking about how far we'd come. It feels like we can finally do the work we've always dreamed of. Mobile units to replace equipment within 24 hours. Legal teams in every state. Education programs for law enforcement. We're going to make sure no child ever experiences what Zaria did. That night, I watched the news with Zaria. There I was on screen, accepting the Gates Foundation award, talking about our mission. And there was Austin, a brief mention in the crawl at the bottom. Man who stole disabled child's wheelchair denied parole. Zaria looked at me. Do you think Papa Austin watches you on TV from prison? I thought about it honestly. Maybe. I hope he does. I hope he sees what I built from his betrayal. I hope he understands that he didn't break us. He made us stronger. She typed slowly. Are you still angry? No, baby. I'm not angry anymore. I'm empowered. There's a difference. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Saw you on the news. 18 months clean. I'm still here, still working. I love you. I showed Zaria. What do you think? Should I respond? She typed, everybody deserves a chance to be better. But she only gets one. Wisdom from an 11-year-old. I typed back, proud of you. Keep going. That night I updated my vision board. At the center, a photo of Zaria in her wheelchair, smiling, independent, free. Around it, our nonprofit's growth goals, legislation we were advocating for, speaking engagements scheduled for the next year. At the bottom I wrote, from betrayal to breakthrough. This is what fighting back looks like. Because that's what I'd learned through all of this, that the greatest revenge isn't destruction. It's transformation. It's taking the worst thing someone did to you and building something so powerful, so meaningful, that their betrayal becomes your origin story. Austin sold my daughter's wheelchair for $300. I turned that into a $100 million nonprofit that's changed thousands of lives. He watches from prison while I accept awards on television. And every time I do, I think, this is what justice looks like. This is what protecting your child looks like. This is what happens when you refuse to let family loyalty excuse abuse. My daughter has her independence. I have my purpose. And my stepfather has 8 years to think about the moment he chose drugs over a disabled child's dignity. Some people call that harsh. I call it consequences. And I call it peace.